Trump is not Christ, but in many people, he triggers a reaction that is straight from the demonic. We witness this as Trump derangement syndrome. Interestingly, there's never been another person, at least that I know of, that's had a psychiatric disease named after them. Trump causes a reaction in people that, like, we've never seen before, and even in reasonably normal people, the hate is palatable. People are obsessed with Trump, not his followers, but those who oppose him. And that's another interesting phenomenon connected with Trump, in that those who are adamantly opposed to him keep painting Trump followers in their own image. The passion and the devotion that are attributed to Trump followers is really on the left. They have a whole cadre of reporters and newsmakers and personalities, and even those who are not specifically in the field of journalism or in newsmaking, dedicating themselves to fight Trump and oppose everything he says, or to turn everything he says into a negative. And by this, we mean movie and music and sports personalities who, on the face of it, have absolutely nothing to do with Trump or politics. But we could ask, what has all this to do with Christ? What has Trump derangement syndrome got to do with Christ? In some ways, I think if Christ had returned to earth 4 years ago, we would be seeing Christ derangement syndrome far more magnified, but the reaction on the left would have been the same. And anybody who was seen supporting Christ would have been targeted and demonized in the same way that Trump is. The fury that the left expresses against faith has nothing to do with Christ specifically, or with Trump, or with the church, or with Christians. This fury is based on the emptiness of the atheist's own life. If Christ exists, which he does, then the only reaction to Christ is to have faith in him. Now, atheists talk about faith as if faith has no evidence. And yes and no, this is true in one respect. But the faith in Christ is not about evidence. It's about trust in a person. It's a trust in an agency, and that agency is Christ, and in whom he is. And so we trust what he says. The evidence that we have is based on our trust, on our faith in him. Without him, there is no evidence. By this I mean, if it wasn't for who Christ is, there wouldn't be the evidence, there wouldn't be the trust in him. We don't have that trust in other people, and yet that trust in him ought to be translated over or carried over into trust of those who follow him. Without trust in the church, how can we say we have trust in Christ? To say we have trust in Christ, but not trust in the church or the members of his body, is to say that he is of no effect, that we alone are the Christian. And even were that true, all the more shame on us that we're not 100% not dedicated to evangelizing. But if we trust Jesus, we have to trust that he's working in the world. We have to trust that he is working in people's hearts and that people can be trusted, that we can have faith in them. And without that faith, there is no evidence, as it were, because there's no fact that does not require trust. If we see an event take place, we can't use this as proof of anything. It's an observation. We have to interpret it. There has to be significance or value placed on that observation to even make it into something resembling a fact. We could see somebody healed spontaneously through prayer. This could be evidence of the healing power of prayer, or it may not. We make the observation, but where do we jump to after that? Do we jump to unknowns? Yeah, it looks like prayer healed the man, but we know prayer doesn't heal. Christ heals. So then, are we viewing the action of Christ within the world healing this person? Or is it all just hapstance? Is there something we missed? Maybe the doctors got it wrong. Maybe the man's not even healed. We don't know. The evidence just is never there. It's not there, only the faith is there. And anyone who says they have no faith is telling a lie. They're contradicting themselves. Because if you have no faith, you have no position to take. You don't have any perspective on anything. To say, I don't believe in Christ, well, what do you believe in? You believe in whatever is not Christ. There is something you believe in. You believe in an environment or situation in which Christ, as we conceive of him, is not pertinent. So the secularists to say, I don't have faith because my faith is based on evidence, is talking nonsense. He's being incoherent. There's no empiricism that provides evidence. There's only empiricism that provides substantiation, and it's not perfect. And it's not perfect support either. We can see the sun come up as many times as we wish, and we can think back to all the times that the sun must have come up. But there is no evidence that the sun must come up. There's only faith that it will come up. We don't have proof of the sun coming up. We have an observation, and we have a speculation and an assumption that the sun comes up, and that thinking that the sun comes up is a reasonable assumption, but it's all based on faith. It's a edifice of faith that we base our life on. So then the question, and the only question really that we really should focus on, is what can we base our faith on? Can we base it on an empirical mountain of observations? Can we base our faith on secularism or atheism or liberalism? These things do not produce truth. Truth is an absolute. And empirical discoveries only give you a partial truth, or what is called synthetic truth. We look at an event and we try to explain it, and we use whatever explanatory tools we have to develop the closest approximation to truth. But it's not an absolute truth. Absolute truth is logic. Absolute truth is A equals A or not A. This is analytical truth. And analytical truth is based on symbols and a definition. And this is the only real truth there is. So we have to have information, and we have to have communication to have truth. Without language, there is no truth. Truth is a concept, and it has a definition, and it refers to something. And if it doesn't have a clear definition, if we say truth is what I think is true, truth is my opinion on things, truth is what I have proved to be so now, and I have the option of changing what I think is true tomorrow, it invalidates the very definition of truth. So we need a foundation based in absolute logic or absolute truth, absolute reliability. Secularism is relative. It's a shifting foundation. It's what the Bible calls a house built on a sand. It's not a solid foundation. And so when people see Trump and they see that people have faith in him, and the liberal sees this faith and they don't see the foundation for this faith in facts or what they think is facts, they're triggered by the faith. They get an image of Christ as unchristlike as what Trump is. It's not how we see him. It's how the liberals see him. And the liberals see him as a Christ-like figure. And because they demonize him, they release the demons in themselves. And this is why you get the Trump derangement syndrome. It's because they have no foundation. They don't have the logic and the truth to combat Trump, because they don't have the ability to combat Christ. All they can do is demonize all those who believe in him and all the things connected with him.